We have two readings today. I will share the first, and Terri will share the second. The first one is called That Which Holds Awe by Nancy Schaefer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then, thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot fully be addressed, she added particularities, saying Spirit of Life, Spirit of Love, Ancient Holy One, Mystery we will not ever fully know, Gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant, but by then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happens. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room went silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child, said water. Someone said Kuan Yin. Then, womb. Great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen.
Over the Weather by Naomi Shihab Nye. We forget about the spaciousness above the clouds, but it's up there. The sun's up there too. When words we hear don't fit the day, when we worry what we did or didn't do, what if we close our eyes? Say any word we love that makes us feel calm. Slip it into the atmosphere and rise. Creamy miles of quiet, giant swoop of blue.
Thank you, Terri. So on Friday night, I walked the dogs in the waning hours of daylight just this couple days ago. And those smells, the smells, they came at me on every block from every direction. And at one point, I was just in my neighborhood, but at one point I came upon a particularly perfect white flowered tree. Standing on the sidewalk, the bottom of its canopy crowned me like an umbrella, just a few feet above my head. This perfect tree, at the peak of its perfect bloom, sheltered my whole body and engulfed me in sweet perfume scents. I stayed under its protective leaves and branches for many minutes, just breathing in its flowers, being enveloped in another sensory dimension. As I wandered my way through the smells and sights of my neighborhood, making my way back to my home, thinking about today and the words that I wanted to share with you, I imagined all of my beloved scoofers, and what you might be encountering in your own neighborhoods, your St. Croix River, the lakes, your farm fields, acreages of trees, quiet expansiveness, small towns, country roads, county highways, whatever might be outside in your neighborhoods, in your house. I imagined it walking together, smelling those same scents, perhaps. And I looked up at the moon that I know we share, waxing gibbous, glowing bright at 94% illumination, about to develop into its fullness that will happen tomorrow on Monday. The mostly clear sky ahead above was punctured and punctuated with these blobs of clouds. It's the perfect sky in my mind. I love skies that are mostly clear with these blobs of clouds. They had this lovely gradient of mauve-y purple gray that moved into white in the center, and then pow, a pop of pink on the other edge. My mind flitted to when I had lived in Portland, Oregon for my ministerial internship. I had never, ever experienced a spring like the spring they have there. It started in February. A riot of colors everywhere, weeks upon weeks upon weeks. There were flowers ablaze with every hue. I took it all in, amazed, absorbed, awed that such abundant beauty, such concentrated beauty could be possible. So much came up for me on that Friday night walk. Attention, memory, imagination, these intertwining facets of the human experience. Imagination is our theme for May, and it offers such fascinating and dynamic ways to help us grow into our being and into our becoming by offering changes in perspective. Imagination is a doorway into possibility, into the multitude of future paths. It is a doorway into the past, an opportunity to gain a different understanding, to discern alternative insights. It is also a doorway into the here and now, a way to unstuck us, to provoke us, to motivate or challenge us. Life itself, I think, requires us to have some degree of imagination, because life by its very nature is always adapting, always changing, never static. How else can we meet this without evoking our sense of imagination? Because this practice helps us recognize how we can't possibly know for certain or absolutely what is to come, how things may turn out, what may happen, what we'll encounter, how we may show up, how we may respond, act, feel, how the world may show up, act, respond, or feel. Imagination provokes wonder, possibility. It offers healing and hopefulness. It gives us a means of escape. It can make us hunger and feel wistful. It can provoke drive and so much more. It is full of metaphors and analogies and what ifs. It holds possibilities and maybes, the unexpected, the seemingly impossible, and the seemingly unimaginable. It holds that which can be good as well as that which can cause great harm. Imagination creates space for us to realize the unfathomable or the unrelatable, for things we thought couldn't possibly happen or exist to enter our consciousness. Because, truth be told, the unimaginable, the unfathomable, actually does happen to many people, in many circumstances, and in many places. Imagination can certainly be imaginary, but it can also be openings into a larger world of realities that already exist, but may be invisible or unknown to us without us being curious, without us practicing imagination and stretching our hearts and minds into uncharted places. We here have intentionally chosen to engage in a religious life, in practices and ways of being with another that are ethically or morally or spiritually guided in community. We may each use different language for why we're here, but why we chose Unitarian Universalism and why we have chosen to be with this particular community of Scoof. It is likely that the vast majority of us here are also here because we imagine our interdependence with one another, the ways our lives twist and wind together with the people that we know and countless others near and far, with the earth and within interspecies relationships. We recognize the mutual web of existence of which we are a part, and we recognize that what transpires in this communal global space affects us all. We hold this, I believe, as one of our deepest values, our deepest felt truths, because of prophetic imagination. Walter Brueggemann is one of the most significant theologians and scholars of the 20th century, and he wrote, "The task of prophetic ministry is to nurture, nourish, and evoke a consciousness and perception alternative to the consciousness and perception of our dominant culture around us." You can tell he's a scholar. He uses big words, but hopefully you could tease that apart. He goes on and says, our culture is competent to implement almost anything and to imagine almost nothing. Because imagination is a danger. It is the vocation of the prophet, and we are all prophets. It is the vocation of the prophet to keep alive the ministry of imagination, to keep on conjuring and proposing future alternatives to the single one the king wants to urge as the only thinkable one. Imagination is mighty powerful, right? Because it is dangerous to those that want to squash and tamp down our imagination, our ability to change what is before us or what is forced upon us. The active practice of imagination opens us to a fuller reality of all that is around us and ways forward that perhaps didn't occur to us when we or our worlds or our worldviews remain contained. So imagine what happens when we learn about and act in real solidarity with the lived realities of people who experience racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, ableism, just to name a few forms of oppression. When we recognize the harm caused by assumptions and judgments about one's body, about one's wishes or needs or identities or citizenship, we humans can imagine anything. And some of those imaginations are based on fear or hate. They are aligned with furthering harm or prioritizing power over one another. But our imaginations can also stretch beyond the realm of what we thought possible or real. They can become connection points that expand, open us up, allow for change. They can become a gateway to help us recognize gaps between what we thought was real and how our dreams, our our hopes, our wishes, our creative possibilities can be much, much bigger and brighter and love-filled. And this is the kind of imagination, this is the practice of imagination that supports our thriving and our surviving. Through my work in prisons, I saw and people shared how imagination can make the walls lock one up even tighter, and how imagination could offer real freedom and hope. This is especially exemplified by Voices of Hope. This is a choral organization that leads singing inside Minnesota prisons. I've followed them for years, and I was moved by news from Amanda Weber. She is the founder and the artistic director of Voices of Hope. And in a recent newsletter, she was talking about this bittersweet goodbye that they just had in their Shakopee prison choir. So Shakopee, for those who might know, is the state of Minnesota's only state prison designated for people who are women. Mary, their longest running member, had sung with Voices of Hope for 10 years, and she was the only remaining person from the original choir. She was released from Shakopee following an 18-year sentence. Many singers in the room were in tears as they said words of goodbye, or with hope, see you later. When Mary was asked what she wanted to share with the choir, she said, "Let the music you learn in Voices of Hope become part of your heart, and it will grow." In 2023, just a couple of years ago, I got to sing with Voices of Hope at a public event that they have with volunteers, because the real Voices of Hope choir, those that are incarcerated, are not allowed to perform outside of prison. And so those of us, some of us in the free world, will sing kind of on their behalf to expose more of the public to this amazing choir, these amazing choirs. And in this performance in 2023, we were joined by a person named Leah Pearson, who was formerly incarcerated in Shakopee, and she wrote one of the pieces that we sang at the event. It's called Just Believe With Me. If we had time, I would have actually had something for you to play, and we would have heard it. But I just want to at least share the words for the chorus, and if I remember, I will try to include a link in the next newsletter so that you can hear it yourself. The chorus goes, "Take my hand and don't let go. The stars shall still shine as fires grow. And I know, reaching up to the skies, I know it's far, but that's all right. I'll be there by your side. Just believe with me." I know you can't hear this song like I'm hearing it in my head right now, but it is such, I think, an ode to imagination and to trust. Oh, the energy that just came forth with all of our voices intermingling, saying, just reach for the skies. I know how hard it is. I know how isolating it is, but just imagine a new way forward. Imagine that I am right here with you and that I believe with you. There is so much joy being released from prison, and it is matched equally with anxiety as support systems in reentry are few, and the barriers these individuals will face as they seek housing, jobs, education opportunities, and more are immense. And Leah said, believe in yourself. Believe in others. Believe you can make your way in society that gives you little reason to believe. And boy, does that require a boatload of imagination. Mary and Leah are remembering the songs and the fellowship, and they are asking it to take hold of their hearts and carry them forward into new possibilities and into new freedoms. And that is pretty remarkable. And because this is Mother's Day, I want to share one more story. This is a personal one to me. At age 24, I made a choice not to become a mother. I made this decision in part because my partner did not want kids, and I wanted a life with that partner. With Brian, some of you met, and Brian was someone that I wanted to be with more than I wanted a child. At that time, I also could not fathom having a child because I was super duper scared that they might turn out just like my sister. Yep. My teenage years with my younger sister were really hard. They left a lot of trauma that I've worked on for years. I'm okay. No one needs to help me on that. But it made a pretty big impact on my decision. I could not risk going through a similar experience again. More precisely, I was terrified of even the most remote chance that I would be dealt that card, a mini-me version of the sister that traumatized me so much as a teenager. At 24 years old, 24, oh, we're such babies then, 24 years old, I couldn't imagine that I might have different abilities, more tools, more resources, more options available to me as an adult, as a parent in a different generation. I was so afraid I couldn't recognize that even if a child I raised with Brian, with someone else, on my own, whatever scenario, I couldn't recognize that that child, if they shared some characteristics that my sister has or had, that that child isn't actually my sister. I was not my teenage self, and the context and circumstances were different. I didn't see that. I couldn't imagine that, and so I just said, nuh-uh, not going there, and that's okay. And actually, I didn't realize this until many, many years later. To the detriment of my actual sister, I didn't even try to imagine her as ever-changing. I didn't imagine what our relationship might evolve to as adults instead of children, and I kept her stuck in her own teenage self. We are still mostly estranged, but I can finally imagine her as someone other than that 16-year-old who beat me up. I was 24 years old and decided to be child-free in part because I limited my imagination about parenthood of a child I hadn't even met yet, of the possibilities my own self had, the capacities, the capabilities, and the ability to adapt and change. None of these things even occurred to me because my imagination and capacity to even wonder were so locked down by this fear. Now, I want to be super duper duper clear that I'm not saying that if I had just imagined differently or had helped to overcome those fears or been braver or any number of attitude adjustments or willingness to, quote, just take the leap, that my ultimate choice or path would have been different, that the right or natural path was motherhood. Because there's another part of this story that is just as vital and is really vital to me and who I am now today, especially. Because that same 24-year-old who was so scared also imagined a different way of being a woman in my generation. I was a young adult who was living into new ideas of feminism, encountering new, to me, lived experiences of sexuality, awakening to my own identities. I was also holding all of that with such vitality and realness and importance. I was practicing a degree of independence and agency and decision-making that didn't seem possible in the Christian framework that I had been taught and raised in. And I had chosen and fell in love with a male partner who clearly told me his intention not to be a father. And he invited me to make a conscious choice about that too. I had an option in my particular circumstances. Motherhood for me didn't have to be a foregone conclusion, as culturally was the norm at the time and persists in the heteronormative nature of today's society. I had the gift of imagining a child-free future that was fulfilling and free and possibility-filled and identity-affirming for who I am and who I was. I have no regrets. Perfect timing, because I have no regrets. I dance the life that I lead, and I am okay with that. For me, it was the right choice for me. For 35 years, I've lived into and grown from that choice and from the evolving ways I've imagined and reimagined relationships. And it's why I fight so hard for cis women and trans folks and queer folks to have the freedom and rights and acceptance to live into the fullest imagination of whoever they are and whoever they want to be, which includes also having the choice to be parents or not to be parents. For all people, I want us to imagine and support the complexities and expansiveness of parenthood, of its heartbreaks and its heart-wrenching losses, of choices that have been given and choices that have been taken away, of its joys and its stunning surprises, and its villages of those who share in the care and the nurturing of our young ones. Life, by its very nature, is chaotic and wild, and our human actions and our human decisions can make it even more so. Practicing imagination helps us adapt, and it gives us the capacity to more easily ride with the chaos of life, to roll with it, and harness strands within it. We're going to close out our service today singing an oldie, the Hammer song. That's really old to me. But I like it. It's a good song. And as Peter Seeger, one of the writers of this song, recalled in his autobiography, how can I keep from singing? Well, you put your orders of service down. You're not going to sing quite yet. But I want to share a message of that he put in his autobiography of the song. And the message was, in his words, we've got tools and we are going to succeed. And this is what a lot of spirituals say, that we will overcome. I have a hammer. The last verse didn't say, but there ain't no hammer, there ain't no bell, there ain't no song, but honey, I got you. Pete says, we could have said that. But the last verse says, I have a hammer. I have a bell. I have a song. Here it is. It's the hammer of justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's the song of love. And no one can take those away. No one can take our imagination away. No one can take away the creative power, the resourcefulness, the ways we know deep in our bones and in our spirits of how we can protect and support and care for ourselves and for one another. How we can love one another and how we can bring about freedom and justice all over this land. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine it? So, my friends, ground deep and fly high. Our imagination has wings. Let it soar and let us soar with it. Bless and